Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Greg Belkin. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing for Jitterbit. Welcome to a very exciting webinar, how to build a high-definition HR experience with a no-code application platform. So today's webinar is really all about discovering how a no-code application platform empowers employees and optimizes HR workflows. HR leaders, as you know, we all know, who are really successful, who are really, kind of knocking it out of the park. We really see them prioritizing the employee experience in the very same way that they do the consumer experience. Because most companies use a multitude of systems and processes that really tax their IT resources, they've got to be creative about how they're optimizing their workflows. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. So, look, I know that you and all of us on this webinar have been to a lot of webinars lately. We all have. But I think the thing that makes today's webinar really different, and what's going to be really interesting, is it's going to be not only a chance to have an educational experience about overcoming challenges, but it's also going to be a chance to see exactly how it's done from a nuts and bolts perspective. Jitterbit, we're a company. We have, our different modes and apparatuses, and we are constantly trying to perfect this challenge as well. And we solved it by using our own technology. And for this webinar, we're going to bring in our own HR team to discuss it, and our own solution manager to show you how you, from an under the hood perspective, show you how it's really done. So to that end, I'm joined by my two awesome colleagues, Stephanie Anderson, who's our global HR manager, and Cameron Ball, Cam, who's our strategic sales platform engineer. So neither one of these individuals, and myself included, are from IT, okay? They're line of business. We all are. We're line of business individuals, looking to solve challenges, just like I'm sure many of you are today in the audience. A couple quick housekeeping notes. Feel free to ask questions along the way. You can do so by the control panel on the bottom of your monitor. We have some Q&A time at the end. Steph, Cam, and I, we really want this webinar to be your webinar. And so, as we go, feel free to pop your questions in, and, as best we can, we'll, morph the presentation to suit your needs, and we'll answer questions as we go. And of course, feel free to visit us at jitterbit.com after the presentation for more about the organization. So the agenda is pretty simple. We got 4 tasks that we'd like to do today. First, talk a little bit about the challenges associated with managing multiple HR applications. That's going to be Steph. We're going to talk a little bit about why Jitterbit decided to embrace a no-code app building solution, also Steph. And then we're going to pass it over to Cam, who's going to give us an under-the-hood look at the technology. And I will wrap it up with a quick, I promise, very quick recap of Jitterbit. So, I would be remiss if I didn't do one slide at the beginning talking a little bit about Jitterbit. So it's just a quick 30 seconds. For those of you who don't know Jitterbit, we're an API transformation company, and we're really focused on making it quicker and easier for businesses to use data really from any source and rapidly innovate to make faster business decisions. The Harmony API integration platform, which is something that I'll touch on towards the end, and our API 360 solutions, they really enable organizations to quickly connect SaaS, on-premise, on-cloud applications, and really instantly infuse some really good intelligence into any business processes. We've grown to over 500 employees with 900 clients. We also have 390 consulting and delivery partners, and we're integrated tightly with 90 of the world's largest software providers. And so today, on the webinar, it's really going to focus on technology that Jitterbit developed, namely App Builder, which is our no-code app building and data management tool. And so, we're going to get into that, but enough about Jitterbit, enough about this. I'm going to now hand it over to Steph, who's going to talk about HR management at Jitterbit. So Steph, over to you.
Thank you, Greg, and hello, everyone. As Greg mentioned, my name is Stephanie Anderson, and I run HR at Jitterbit. Until recently, I was, as they say, an HR department of one. Even with a small team, we are responsible to update multiple systems, from recruiting to onboarding to payroll to benefits administration. And because we are under pressure to do more with less, we are always looking for ways to automate and streamline our workload while improving the employee experience. Next slide, please, Greg. And as I just touched on this, these are many of the systems that we use here at Jitterbit. We have benefit and recruiting platforms, data entry platforms, our HRIS system, talent management, and our just traditional HR function. Next slide, please, Greg. Here you will see some pretty interesting facts. As we know, there's a big market for HR solutions. In 2021, the average organization deployed nearly 17 different HR-related applications. And even with these new and improved HR solutions, there's been a 7% decrease in the overall satisfaction and user experience that HR executives have experienced with their HR tech stack. And because of the talent shortage in the IT world, HR departments have a limited amount of asks they can make of their IT department to help solve those challenges. Despite these challenges and pressures, we have to continue to innovate and deliver a good employee experience. Next slide, please, Greg. Our latest challenge was to automate our benefit enrollment process. We lacked a single point of interaction between our HR team and the employee base to capture that information. And while some HR systems can provide solutions to many of the HR functions, we still have a long way to go to find a one-stop shop. Because we do not have an online benefit administration portal, our employees would be required to enter information into different systems, go to different sites, go to different reference plan information, as well as complete manual paper forms. This process is clearly not scalable to support our future new hire growth or to support an annual enrollment process for up to 400 people, up to 500 employees now. Boy, sometimes I lose track. We're growing so quickly. Next slide, Greg, please. The solution we were looking for must be able to integrate with Jitterbit's current human resource information system, or HRIS system, which is Bamboo HR. Must be capable of securely storing HIPAA-compliant documents and employee information, and it's easily managed with a small HR team. As I mentioned before, we're a small team, we wear many hats, and we have a lot to do. We needed a system that would require little data entry, a platform that increases visibility into progress of all enrollments, and information that can be downloaded into a template suitable to upload to carrier sites. Not only do we need to complete the enrollments, but we need to get all that information, accurate information, into those sites. As I mentioned earlier, we're a small team, we wear a lot of hats, and it's very important that we had a solution that was easy to customize and easy to use. Next slide, please, Greg. The solution had to be easy to build and to implement without any IT involvement. The app had to be easy to maintain by HR and other stakeholders with no coding experience. We wanted it to be easy for our employees to use with a friendly user interface, to provide a singular point of contact for all employees, and most importantly, to be scalable for our future growth. We have very aggressive growth plans and are onboarding weekly employees. We needed a solution that we could make available to all new hires to enroll and have their benefits effective on day one. Next slide, please, Greg. A decision was made to use Jitterbit's App Builder product to solve this internal challenge. It met all of our employee and HR specific requirements, the low cost, which I did receive an employee discount, and the ability to set up and maintain the application without any coding experience. As Greg mentioned earlier on the call, I am not in IT and neither is Cam, who you'll hear from shortly. Neither of us have a development background. App Builder allowed us to easily make changes and updates to the system on the fly. And when next year enrollment comes around, it'll be a quick update to plan information and we'll be ready to go. Next slide, please, Greg. The no-code application was built for use by Jitterbit employees. The employee data, including personal and dependent information, was pre-populated into the application. As employees began the enrollment process, they did not need to exit the application to reference any supporting materials or check provider directories. The app housed all information, including the rates, contributions, eligibility, plan documents, and linked to carrier sites. It was a very user-friendly application to use. If there were no changes from a prior year enrollment, employees were just prompted to check a box that could complete their enrollment process. The employee was then emailed a summary of their enrollment for confirmation. The result was a paperless system that streamlined enrollment, providing user-friendly experience for employees to understand and select their benefits. And now I'll pass it over to Cam so you can take a look at this app from a text perspective. Thanks, Greg.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. And Greg, if you don't mind just pulling up that slide, there was a slide just with a quick agenda. I'd like to maybe set the stage for folks before we dive right in. While Greg's pulling that up, just to give a quick note on myself, good to meet everyone. I've gone off camera just to make bandwidth a little easier on my home connection here. But as Greg's pulling this up, a couple of things we really wanted to focus on as we take you through this. So primarily, and where I'm going to spend the bulk of the time, is going to be around the end user experiences, both from an administrative perspective. So, what Stephanie and her team were able to, get from the app. You got a snapshot of that in some of those screenshots in the prior slides, but we'll take a closer look at that. And then also, importantly, the employee experience of going through and completing enrollment. And then as we obviously, want to focus on how it was built, we're going to take a look at the development side and actually the app builder tool itself versus the resultant application that our employees used for enrollment. And then briefly, we'll touch on the integration points through kind of the rest of our Harmony platform, be that Cloud Studio and our API management capability. Not the focus of today's discussion. Obviously, we'll reference those where applicable in terms of how data is getting in and out of the application, but we're really going to focus on the app that's been created and then obviously what we did to build that in our no-code tool. So that's kind of the stage setting there. Thanks for that, Greg. Sorry to make you flip back there, but I'll go ahead and take over screen share here. And we'll jump in. So hopefully everyone can see my screen and hear me okay. So when we are met with the kind of login on the app, I'm going to be taking you all first as a quick disclaimer through a sandbox version of the application, obviously. So we don't want to reveal any employee data or any sensitive information as it relates to our benefits beyond kind of what's publicly available. So there are going to be a couple of nuanced differences, just in that we adapted this to be a little bit more demo friendly versus the exact experience our employees went through. Namely, right here on the login, as in the production version, we would be using our single sign-on, so we can actually connect to a variety of identity providers and allow for single sign-on support through these applications. So you'll see me using some sandbox specific custom login credentials here, but in a production scenario, just wanted to point out that we could certainly support SSO. But enough about that. Let me jump right in. So like I said, we'll start from the admin view. So this is the set of screens that Stephanie and her team interacted with in the application. First off, you'll notice right when we log in, we have a really rich dashboard with some quick hit information around kind of what's going on in enrollment world. So I can see quickly, how many folks are stragglers and have not yet started. And in this simulated example, we're very early on in the enrollment process, obviously. We can see who's in progress and then obviously who's submitted. And then we can see that in nice kind of a graphical view as well, just and see that change in real time, as folks move throughout the process. But maybe we want to make an adjustment to this dashboard. Stephanie decides that it would be helpful maybe to see, since we are growing so quickly, a snapshot view of how many employees we've got, kind of against these totals. So maybe we want to come in and add a new widget to our dashboard. All that can be done here in the app itself versus from the design side. So it's nice that the user can customize their look and feel. So I'm going to come in and point this at our employees module, and we'll talk a bit more about modules here in just a second. I've only got one view on that module, and again, we'll talk about views. And let's see, I'm going to make this Jitterbit purple. And let me add one quick icon here. All right. There we go. We've got a new dashlet, and I need to move that up. It's hidden below the fold there under my status report. Let me drop that, and there we go. So now we've got a new dashlet. I can click right on that. It's going to take me to the employees page. I can see, all of my employees here, or again, just at a snapshot view, I can see that in real time and see, kind of those updates. So obviously a simplified example, but very easy to quickly add relevant info out here to these dashboards. We've also got a dashboard, as you saw in the screenshots there, that lets Stephanie and team drill into the specific kind of plan types and see folks who've enrolled in those for that extract, to go out to the providers. So it's easy to come here. We can click into one of these. Obviously, we don't have, the full list of all of our real employees. These are pulled in from a sandbox of Bamboo HR. So these are completely anonymized names, but we can pick and choose in this view which fields we'd like to include as part of this report. We can change, again, how this information is presented, and then we can easily come here and set up an export if we just wanted to dump that to a file. Or as we'll talk about in a few minutes, we can build through our integration capabilities much more complex and rich integrated experiences to pull or push data in or out of the app as needed. So we'll back up to the dashboard here so we can see all this information. Again, we have a good understanding of what's going on in the app, but maybe to make some of this make a bit more sense, let's switch over to the employee view. Let's run through what that experience looks like from an employee's perspective, and we'll come at a few points, and drop back in on the admin view and see some things as they change. So I'll go ahead and log out. And through the wonders of Chrome, I've got these other credentials saved, so we'll go ahead and log right in. I'm going to log in as myself now, and you'll notice immediately the look and feel is a bit different, and I'm prompted with some information. So it's context aware, we'll say, so it knows who's logged in. It's greeting me and it's giving me some information, prompting me to check all my information before completing the enrollment process. So we'll click OK. It's shifted me in now to review my information, so I can see that data that Stephanie referred to as being pre-populated as far as my info, my unstarted enrollment record here, and then my dependents featuring my cats here today. So now all this looks good. I'm comfortable with this. Should there need to be changes, or maybe my dependents were improperly reflected here, I could click resync. That's going to call out to Bamboo HR, bring those changes in. Maybe I've miscategorized one of my cats here, or I maybe have a new child on the way and I want to resync that in, and I've added them to Bamboo. I can come in and click that button, but I'm going to be completing this as sort of an employee only enrollment today, so we'll bypass that. So now I'm ready to get started. I'm going to click on this button here, and that's going to take me over to the enrollment wizard. And now the process is going to step me through, kind of line by line, so to speak, through the process of submitting my enrollment. So let's go ahead and walk through that together. So I'm choosing to complete my enrollment, but as Stephanie mentioned, if I wanted to make either of these selections just with one click, that would take care of all of that for me. We'll go ahead and make some selections here today. Now, I had reviewed the medical plans previously, but I need a quick refresher, so I can jump out to the plan details here and take a closer look at what options are available, what my deductibles might be. So we'll go ahead and click on that. This will bring me over to our plans database, specifically for the medical plans, since that's the step that we're on. And I can quickly review, see the info, and make a determination. If I want to investigate further, I can click into a specific record and I can see all that info on the plan details, and we could link out to the site there. Again, this is some stand-in information, but I'm good with this. This looks like the plan I want to select, so I'll go ahead and return to the enrollment, and it's going to pick us up where we left off. So we'll go ahead and make a medical plan selection now. I'm going to go ahead and choose that high deductible plan that we were taking a look at just a moment ago, rather. And again, I'm going to choose employee only, and we'll go ahead and submit. Now, because I've chosen a high deductible plan, we offer an HSA, as a part of that. So I'm being prompted with some information relevant to our HSA process. And then I've given the option, to go ahead and enroll if I so choose. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now I'm prompted to, provide my preferred or desired contribution amount. So I'll go ahead and put in, let's say 3,000. We'll submit. Now it's going to calculate what that is going to equate to for me as a per paycheck deduction. give me a little information there and let me advance on in the process. And then now we get to dental and we have the same options. If I needed to refer back and take a closer look, I could. But the good news is we've got a limited set of dental options, so a little bit easier to recall what the specifics of each of those plan types were. And of course, we can repeat the process for vision. And as I'm making these selections, it's updating the enrollment record behind the scenes here. You may have noticed that the sort of background of the page here is updating, or you're seeing values change. That's so that, if I were to leave or for whatever reason, need to stop the process and pick it back up later, it's going to have tracked my progress up to this point. So we'll go ahead and enroll in the flex spending as well. We'll also get that little note as far as what our per paycheck deduction will be. Now we can opt into our various AD&D insurances here. And lastly, or almost lastly here, we'll go ahead and choose our 401k deduction. So I can choose whether or not I want to just enter a flat dollar amount or base that on a percentage. So we'll do percentage amount here. We can obviously choose our percentage, let's say 12. And you can certainly build it in to pull the salary data from Bamboo HR. That's not something we've done. We wanted to kind of keep it as a sort of estimator or a calculator, so you could just put in that detail, and your salary information is not persisted to the app for any reason. That's all kept in Bamboo. So we'll just put in a simulated number here. Let's submit. And again, we'll get some contextual information about our prior selection, basically just breaking down what the estimated total enrollment would be, or contribution would be, and what that again equates to per paycheck. And then lastly, now we can choose what type of PTO plan we want to enroll in. There we go. So I've made all of my selections. Now I'm prompted, if I'm comfortable with my selections, I can sign and submit, but I want to do one quick review before I go ahead and sign on the dotted line, so to speak. So I'm going to click no, I need to review. And I can just quickly, obviously, scroll through and make sure that all of my selections are in line with what I chose. If I'm good with that, now I can go ahead and sign and submit. It's going to bring me right back to that step of the process. And now I can enter my name to digitally sign. And there we go. So now it's given me notification that I've submitted my benefits. And if I needed to make changes for any reason, I could reach out to HR, or better yet, I can actually do that from here within the application. So it may be that I just realized I want to actually enroll in the PPO plan. This is a real scenario. I did have to reach out to Stephanie for that after the fact, because I goofed when I was going through my enrollment in real life. So this is a real world scenario. So I can click right here and request an HR unlock. So because I've submitted my enrollment and signed on the dotted line, the record was locked. I couldn't make any changes. But if I do need to make a change while the enrollment period is still active, I can make this request. So we'll pause here. I'm going to log out as my user, and we'll jump back in as an admin. And before I do that, I'm going to quickly go to another tab here. So this is we won't dwell on this for long, but this is a little email testing tool that we use rather than having to pull up my inbox, so we can kind of receive all the outbound mail traffic from our application. So you can see here that after I submitted my enrollment, I did get a confirmation email, as Stephanie alluded to, basically just letting me know that I've completed my enrollment, and I can click here to return to the record if I so choose. Since I'm logged out, it didn't obviously direct me straight to it, and we'll see another email notification here in just a moment, so we won't dwell on that for long. So we'll go ahead now and log in as our admin. Oops, let's see. And now you'll notice we have a new notification in our notification drawer. So I'll click on that, and it's letting me know that a user is requesting to make some changes to their enrollment. And now, because it's detected that I'm an admin, it's asking me if I want to go through the wizard or if I'd like to skip that. I know right what I want to do, so I'm going to skip. It's just giving me some confirmation of that there. And I'm going to set Cam's record back to in progress. So we'll go ahead and save that. So you'll notice now the sign and submit button's active again. And if I log back out, you'll notice we got another email that's now back to me saying, hey, your enrollment has been unlocked. So I'll log back in as myself. Prompted obviously to review my information once more, and I can go back to my enrollment, and it's going to pick me up again where I left off. So because I already completed all the steps, it's not going to take me to any one step in particular. I could click continue, but it's just going to drop me back to the same place. But I could come in now and choose the PPO plan option, save that, sign and submit, and we're good to go. Perfect. Okay, so that's a quick glimpse. Obviously, there's some different paths and different routes we could go down rather than taking you through each and every one of those permutations today. Just wanted to kind of give you an overall slice of what the two user experiences look like. Now, though, let's take a quick peek behind the scenes and actually see how we put some of this together in our app builder design interface. That'll be my third tab here. And I'm already in the project that we were looking at, that ties to the app experience I just took you through. And right off the bat, we dropped into the app. You get a little bit of summary detail, but really, more importantly, we're going to focus on the kind of menu options here to our left. Some of this stuff will become a bit more relevant as we continue our conversation here. But you can think about structuring an app in sort of a linear fashion. Obviously, it's not always going to go that way, but at the most basic level, you have to know what's the data you want to capture and try to collate and sort of apply logic to in order to complete whatever process, be it enrollment or purchase approval or whatever else it might be. So where we kind of start the process is here in the domain model. We define the modules. Those were sort of the various pages and views that you saw as I kind of went through the application. So I can here in sort of this graphical environment add a new module, or we'll take a look at a couple of the ones we've already got defined. Let's start by looking at a simpler one, the medical plans, where I went out and referenced the details of the high deductible plan or the PPO plan, got some info on deductible and out-of-pocket maximums. So this is kind of what the design view of that looks like. And we can grab our various field types over here from the right-hand side of the screen. We can drag them over onto the canvas here, drop them in place. We can move them around or, sort of section them out as we see fit. And, on various individual fields, say here for our out-of-pocket maximum, we can drill into the field type, and depending on the type, we'll have a variety of different configuration options available to us. We can show and hide or choose, what context those particular fields appear on, for example, whether we want them to be required, and so on and so forth. So it's sort of a simplified example. Again, we can create multiple sections here to sort of break up the page. As you saw, we had a combination of multi-column to single column. So you've got a fair number of options as far as how you arrange your views or your modules. And then looking at a more complex example, just for comparison here, the benefits enrollment form effectively that our kind of UI experience sat on top of is a little bit bigger here. So it's taking a second to load, but once it comes up, we'll take a quick peek at that before we sort of move on to how we start to add some logic to this. So, we're defining the look and feel as far as what data we want to capture. Once that is sort of built out, I'm going to just move on here because it's going to take it a second to load up. Once we've defined our modules, we need to relate them together. So if you're thinking about this, if you do have some development background, perhaps, if you're thinking about it in sort of a traditional app development context, you're going to define your data model. You're going to relate as part of that model definition, you're going to relate various sort of pieces of data to one another. And that's what we've done here in the relations section by taking employees and dependents and associating them to one another in sort of a one-to-many relationship. Again, similar to joining database tables, if that's something that you're familiar with, or if you come from that background. Drop downs we won't dwell on too much, but at various stages or points within your modules or your UI flows, which we'll reference or we'll get into in a bit, you may need to build a drop down or interact with a drop down rather, and so you can define those in a sort of global context. Whereas you can create a PTO plan, for example, once, and I actually use that drop down in 2 or 3 different places throughout the application versus defining it in its specific context over and over again. And then lastly, as far as it relates to the domain and the structure of the app, we have what we call dependencies, which are sort of dependent showing and hiding of different sections or fields, or based on changes of values. We can sort of show and hide elements on the page, again, sort of dependent on field values or who's logged in or things like that. But so once we've structured the app, now we really want to kind of bring it to life and actually kind of make the data move around a bit. And apply some logic, and we do that in a couple of ways. Microflows, which will actually come to second here, and UI flows, which are really what we saw more of in the demonstration. which is how you start to kind of use this flow builder to direct the user, through various stages of the process. So we have a variety of them here. We'll take a look at a couple, sort of ranging from the simple to the more complex. If we look at the sign and submit, for example, when I clicked on that button after I'd reviewed my benefit selections to then complete the sign process, this is what is sort of running to support that. To sort of orient you quickly, we have a variety of steps that we can employ here over on the right-hand side. So that's maybe a decision step. We need to evaluate maybe a field or who the employee is that's logged in, and then make a decision accordingly. Or we need to ask for user input in the case of when we ask, do you want to, or are you sure that you're ready to submit your enrollment? And then you can provide true and false outcomes there, or labels for your buttons. And then things like updating the record. So once we take that user input or we get some information, we need to update the record accordingly, refresh the page, and then provide a message back to the employee. Hey, congrats, you have successfully submitted your enrollment. And one thing I wanted to sort of call out here is that, as you saw, in the demo, some of it was context aware, where depending on some values within the application, it's going to pass that out to the message. So in this message body, we've got some examples of that here, where we have our logged in employee name. So again, context aware, and then we're able to know, from year to year, what year's enrollment we're completing. And then we could obviously pass in other parameters here as well. But just to show you what that experience looks like, so we can bring in details from any variety of places inside the app, be that what we call parameters. Those are kind of like variables, just things that we capture, pieces of data we capture in memory as part of a workflow, for example, or again, details of the particular user that's logged in. Or we can see info from a particular record and we can see the fields. So this is actually the enrollment form, and I can see all the different fields on that and pull them over as needed. So again, that's a simple example of a UI flow, but what kicks this process off is actually when a button is pressed. So again, this is set to run on the enrollments module, and anytime I press that sign and submit button. And I can see, I've got a variety of buttons here, so all of those come up based on whatever module I've tied this UI flow to. So again, simple example. But now let's take a look at the enrollment wizard. So to kind of, again, show you the range of possibilities as far as what this flow builder can do. And brace yourselves, this one is a bit of a doozy. Some of this, I'm sure, I could have done a better job of organizing this, so don't hold that against the tool. But as you can see, I'll kind of just give you a very quick sort of flyby view of this. But we're able to, basically pick it up, determine is it an admin user or an employee user, and then route accordingly. We know whether or not it's a new enrollment or one that's already in progress, or if it's one that's submitted, and then we route based off of that. And we've got a variety of decisions and stages and gates through user interaction or user input rather, to drive the process. And then all along the way, we've got various points at which we might want to redirect the user to another context, either out to the dental plans or the vision plans or medical accordingly. And then, we sort of work our way through the process. We can do some calculation, as we saw in the case of the 401k, where we capture the details. And then if we choose percentage or dollar amount, we can then route and calculate accordingly. And so as you can see, I haven't done a quick count on this recently to see how many steps I've got in here, but we're definitely probably in the 100 or so range, I'd have to estimate. And no signs of slowing down. I could add quite a bit more to this if need be. So just again, to kind of show you the range of capabilities from the simple to the more complex. Really easy though to work with. I mean, I'd say that enrollment wizard UI flow there is the sum total of maybe 3 to 4 hours worth of work. And some of that was me just having to think through what is the process, how would an employee want to, navigate through that particular experience. So that's UI flows. That's all kind of what you see, obviously, in the user interface or as part of the user experience. Microflows are kind of behind the scenes. So similar in concept, but they are going to do things like send emails or those notifications that we saw happening in the app, or some other options like calling out to an API. So if we wanted to look at an example of a microflow, here's one where we're sending that email confirmation. Very simple. Micro sort of says it all as far as the name. In that, we've really just got 2 steps. Was it submitted? Okay, great. Go ahead and send the email. And we'll see once this email option loads here, we can click into the send email step, and we can, again, based on sort of context or what employee is logged in or the details of the record, we can include that as part of our microflow. Oh, there we go. We double click. So here on the send email step, again, we can, where we see these little targets, at any point we could bring in, details from our app. So again, in the case of our receiver or the to email, I'm just pulling that from the logged in employee, and then whatever their email address is that we have as part of their user profile. So what's nice is once you know where to look and where all these things live, it's very easy to quickly start to bring together these types of experiences, and set up notifications and emails and things like that. Again, to take the interaction beyond just the interface that the users are going to see in the app itself. A couple of other things we'll touch on briefly here. We won't dwell on this much because I do want to be sure I can show you the Cloud Studio side of things before kicking it back to Greg. So we do have kind of the bells and whistles is what I always call the configuration section. This is going to be things like setting up outbound email settings, Google Maps. If you want to use location services as a part of this, you can define specific persona-based or profile-based menus. So we have a different menu for employees versus admins, for example, and we can see when we click into that, how we want to arrange and structure what those modules look like, from a menu perspective. And then one last note that I do want to be sure to touch on, or two rather, is branding. So you can give this app, your own custom look and feel. So you can click into this branding section, and both on the public page, the app page, and even a mobile view, set up what the various sort of logo look and feel might be. And you've got a variety of options there. And then we do also support custom domains. So if you wanted to obviously give your app a domain befitting your organization, we can support that as well, rather than obviously it coming up with a Jitterbit-based URL. And then lastly, as I mentioned, we do support a variety of identity providers. So in the production version of the app, it's still toggled to use Google SSO, and I can just log in with my Jitterbit SSO credentials, and it takes me right in and knows my user profile based off of that information. So that's the app builder design environment. Pretty straightforward, as you saw, no code. So it's all drag and drop. It's all configuration exercise, basically. And then as it relates to getting information into the application from an outside source, let's take a look at Cloud Studio to see kind of how we did that. So for those of you that aren't familiar, Cloud Studio is our integration design environment. So kind of our core competency, I guess I'd call it, prior to including App Builder in our broader suite of solutions. And so we have a really rich integration background, which then from an app builder perspective kind of makes the world your oyster. You can connect to anything to bring data in or out. And so we'll talk a quick bit about how we did that here. So this is the Cloud Studio project that we've got tied to our app builder solution, obviously. And you'll notice a couple of things quickly. And again, for the uninitiated, let me just set the stage for you a bit. Here in the design environment on the left, we've got the various workflows and components that make up this project. A workflow is just a series of steps to complete an integration process. Here in the main portion, obviously, is where we're going to start to bring the various connectors and endpoints and things like that together to build out our workflows. And then obviously I'd get those connectors from over here on the right in our connectivity browser. So up here towards the top are the active connections in this project, Bamboo HR obviously featuring prominently here, as well as our app builder connector that's going to give me some access to the specific app that we're tying this to. But hey, maybe you don't use Bamboo HR, or maybe you're thinking about a use case that's not HR specific. Good news for you, there are a whole host of different connectors that you could bring in to a project to support whatever type of application you're looking to build. So, and actually one other note to add to that, as is the case with Bamboo HR, even if we do not have an out-of-the-box connector, not a problem. We've got standards-based options, be that database or FTP connections, or as I've done here, we have what we call a connector builder. And I won't show you that. That's certainly a topic for another discussion, but it's a wizard-driven tool that lets you click through a series of steps, copy and paste basically from the API documentation for whatever system it is you're looking to connect to, and come out the other side with a reusable connector tailored to your needs. So, those of you familiar with Bamboo HR, they've got hundreds of things you could do with their API. I only needed like 8. So here they are. I set those up, but that's going to be things like get the employee directory, get details of their time off, or specific deductions, things like that. And so now these are pre-configured steps that I can take against Bamboo HR without having to be familiar with their API intimately. So that's kind of the setup for all of this. Let me quickly kind of show you a few of the different flows. We won't get into, again, too much of the details here. That's certainly something we could entertain with you all inside discussions or, as it related to the specific integrations you might be interested in. But conceptually here, we've got a, initial data load flow that's going to pull the employee directory, get the details of each employee, and that's just a quirk of how Bamboo HR's API is structured. You get a limited data from the directory, but you need that to then go and get all the info for that particular employee. So with those two steps, we then are able to create the employee record. So that's kind of the user record inside of our app. And then from there, we get the dependents for that employee from Bamboo HR. We create those dependents. And then lastly, we create an enrollment record. So in sort of one fell swoop, we populate the database with all of our users. We bring in the info for those users. We create their associated enrollment and then associate the dependents to that user, kind of all in one swoop. One thing I did fail to mention as part of the microflow builder, but I do want to touch on here, is that you can call an API from within App Builder to call out and interact with the outside world. And so that's the example we've got up here, where when we go to resync our dependents, if I were to click that button inside of the app, this is the process effectively that gets kicked off behind the scenes. So an API is called that ties to this integration process. It's going to send me the details of the employee's HR ID, basically their Bamboo HR employee ID. Excuse me. And then the workflow here is going to use that information to go pull their dependents once more, check basically, do we have that dependent already in the system? If so, let's update them. Otherwise, we're going to pop back out to that initial data load flow and borrow the step that we use to create the dependents there. So nice little note on reusability, because we already built a flow that builds dependents once. I can just reference that again versus rebuilding it. So that's why we have a little call out here out to another step of the process. And then we've got some other workflows here. We won't get into those just in the interest of time, but really wanted to show you kind of soup to nuts what the employee experience looks like, how we set up the UI and sort of the backend capabilities of that app, and then how we integrated that app out to Bamboo HR and potentially other systems as we may need to in the future. So I will pause there and actually stop my share and cede the floor back over to Greg, and we'll be happy to take some questions towards the end, or as we mentioned, have a follow-on discussion with any of you that are interested in booking a demo and kind of going more in depth into any of these areas.
That sounds good. Okay, let me reshare my screen. All right. So did you want to touch on this on the recap, or should we move forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think I hit it there in broad strokes, but just one more time while you've got the slide up. We started with the employee experience. Big things we wanted to focus on were the persona-specific experience and layouts. And as a little note, there's even more to come with some subsequent development around enhancements to App Builder. So stay tuned for some exciting new stuff there. And then, what we could see from the design interface, quickly how easy it was to build out a module, maybe look at UI flows, things like that. And then our drag and drop designer to build out the integrations out to the outside world.
Right. Excellent. Thanks, Cam. That was great. All right. So I'm going to give a very, 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 very quick look at Jitterbit. It'll be short and sweet as I promised. You saw a lot of great technology that Cam showed. You saw the context for it that Steph offered, and it really speaks to what Jitterbit does every single day here. So I wanted to provide, a really high-end look at, our low-code integration platform. This is how our customers connect systems, automate workflows, and create new applications all together, all under one roof, really to help streamline business processes across our enterprise, all with a single low-code integration platform. And, again, I mentioned this because it speaks to the heart about what we talked about and what we learned about today: streamlining business processes, streamlining HR processes that Steph touched on, open enrollment. And it really happens under, the Harmony platform, which is made up of a few different modules. First of all, Cloud Studio, which is, a really intuitive workspace designed to automate workflows, with low code, optimized for ease of use and ease of access. API Manager, which allows the creation and publishing of APIs that have been, that are familiar for developers. and really perform a full API lifecycle management process task workflow. App Builder, which is of course what we talked and what you saw today, which is to rapidly build and deploy and maintain all those web and mobile-based applications without coding experience, which I think is really key for a lot of us. Marketplace, which provides our customers with access to really hundreds of pre-built recipes, process templates, very easy to access, connectors to create and automate new workflows very quickly, very easy. And of course, finally, last but not least, Management Console, which helps customers control and monitor, their workflow integration and processes anywhere, anytime through, one kind of centralized view across the enterprise. And just to drill in quickly on App Builder, which is what we talked about today. Again, App Builder is our no-code application building and data management tool. It's really designed to extend the value of existing Harmony integrations. It's aimed for Harmony platform users who can use App Builder to rapidly build enterprise applications and really seamlessly integrate them into their existing system of record. It's deeply built into Jitterbit's Harmony platform. Again, it provides that easy to use environment, drag and drop, visual creation. It was easy for Cam. It was easy for Steph to really, for them to sink their teeth into, and really kind of supports this high level, digital transformation, hyper automation strategy that I know that we're all thinking about and working on as we take up initiatives like RPA, AI, Web 3.0, blockchain, you name it. And so again, the result is a single unified platform for all iPaaS and APIM management, and application building processes. And last but not least, I'll just touch on the fact that, this is all part of our employee experience way of thinking about our solutions. We have a number of different 360s. This is one of them. But you can see that we're very hot on thinking about things like optimizing applicant tracking, onboarding, offboarding, hire to retire is really the process that we follow. And we're trying to make it easier for organizations to really speed that process through. And as you can see, we here at Jitterbit, we drink our own Kool-Aid. And this is something that, we take very seriously, and, our solutions take very seriously. So with that is the end of the official presentation. And what I want to do is take any Q&A that we might have. And let me see here. Let me monitor the channel here very quickly. So we have a number of different questions that I wanted to ask or follow up ask for Steph and Cam. Steph, I think this first one is for you. As you went through the process of creating the app, and side by side with Cam, any big learning lessons along the way? Any advice, who are folks who are going through the same thing or about to, take a similar adventure?
Yeah. We knew what we wanted and what we needed, and we knew that the App Builder product could do it for us. What really helped with us along the way is once the app was built, was to change the flow of the enrollment, as well as we rolled it out to our employees, an employee would reach out and say, it'd be really better if you'd switch this around, or if you would do this. And so we made a lot of those changes on the fly, and we pushed out the application to our team. So I guess it's really just be ready to make those changes. And because it's so easily customizable, we were able to do so quickly. Great.
The next one is, let me see here. Let me just make sure I'm reading this correctly. Is there another HR related process that you're looking to streamline with no code technology? So plans for the future.
Yes, we're looking at a lot of things. We're looking at using it for our ATS system, for expense management, performance management, really any kind of function that we have going in HR, we can see a need for this product. And as well as Cam can probably speak to other areas that he has worked on. Cam, why don't you speak a little to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, part of the nature of my role is that I'm, engaged with, our prospective customers and existing customer base around, use cases they might be interested in exploring. And we've seen a lot of interest across a variety of different sort of enterprise type applications, ranging both internally for things like purchase approval. So, IT spend, if somebody needs to buy a new application or a piece of hardware, putting that approval process through an app builder flow, or, some customer examples are things like changes to a purchase order, an existing purchase order from a supplier, and layering an approval process on top of that. So really anything that you might think of that has workflow, sort of process steps where someone needs to complete things in a particular order and you may want approvals or other logic layered on top of that. Those are all things that are really great candidates for App Builder.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about the reaction from the employee base? Was there any hesitation beforehand? Have they adapted after the fact? Steph, I'll just open and say that, I was here when it rolled out. I thought it was really, easy to use, but I'm just one person wondering if you can comment on, how it was taken in from the employee base.
Yeah, I think the feedback was pretty good. They were excited that we were using our own product. And in past years, like I mentioned earlier, is a lot of manual enrollment. So I think that the employees that really could go through the application with a few clicks and be done, that was really welcomed.
Great. Steph, can you talk a little bit about, from your own perspective, how has this made a difference in your day-to-day responsibilities? I know, we have a smaller HR team. I'm just wondering, from your own perspective, how has this made your life easier?
Oh, yes, it sure has freed up a lot of time, right? Because we are, like I mentioned, a small HR team. And without this app builder product and without any sort of benefit administration portal, we would literally be doing hours of data entry. We would be collecting paper forms. We would be then having to go to our carrier sites and upload all that information manually. So it has freed up hours of time, of my time and the people on my team's time. So it was very welcome. It gave us time to focus on other initiatives that we're looking forward to rolling out this year.
Great. And then Kim, this one's for you. Has there been any feedback from IT using this technology, just from the IT department?
In our case, no. And that's largely because they were at least involved at the very outset, as far as sort of setting up the environment in which I then built the application. So they set up the connections to Bamboo HR, the credentials that were set for the admin of the application, and a variety of other things that gave them still an ability to sort of provide their governance and then sort of turn me loose to not have to bother them again and go build the application more or less on my own. So in our case, no. That said, they were at least aware. Maybe a little different if I'd have gone off totally, on my own. But I would expect that's the same. Our customers could expect to experience within their organizations as well. It's more of a collaboration because IT can offload, some of that responsibility.
Cool. And then one more, and I think this one's sort of for both of you. But how long did it take to get the app into a state that you felt comfortable sharing with the team?
Oh gosh, Cam, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. So being that this is not, my full-time responsibility, factor that into my answer a bit, but a couple of weeks from, the time we had sort of initial discussions to honestly when open enrollment was kicking off, we sort of embarked on this as a kind of late stage idea. We were like, oh, hey, we might be able to do this because Stephanie was exploring, the sort of manual alternatives. And that's how we came upon it. So a couple of weeks, if it was your full-time responsibility, within the span of a week, I would imagine it's certainly possible. Like I said, the wizard UI flow was just a matter of hours to put that together. So as long as you know what you're doing and want to build, it should be pretty quick.
And I'll add, Cam did get it up and running pretty quickly, but it was me that was going back and tinkering around in there and asking Cam, oh, let's add this. You always want more. And so it could have been done much quicker if I didn't, expand the scope on Cam.
Sounds good. Well, great. Well, just in the Q&A column, I can see that there's a couple questions in there about sharing the recording. So I just want to let everybody know that we will be sharing the recording just in a day or two once we get it all properly spooled up. But I think that's all we have time for in the Q&A. There are a couple other Q&A questions. We're going to make sure that we respond to you individually after the webinar. So don't think that your question will go unanswered. But I just wanted to say a special thank you to Steph and Cam, who put a lot of time into this and, has really done a great presentation today. So thank you both. All right.
My pleasure. Thanks, Greg.
Cool. Well,
Absolutely. It's fun.
Cool. Well, with that, I thank everybody for their time today. And as I said before, the recording will be available shortly. I wish you a very pleasant start of 2023 and look forward to future webinars. Again, any more information on Jitterbit, feel free to visit us, jitterbit.com. Thank you and have a great